All right. Okay. Sorry, it took me a minute to figure out. I actually had to push another little button for the go live. So, hey, I'm Stephanie Weaver, fine art artist, and had a little bit of technical challenge, I guess. So, I'm so glad that you guys are here and hung around until I've apparently been talking to myself for like, I don't know, 10 minutes. So it's been very entertaining conversation. Anyway, so thank you for hanging around. I think we got it all solved. My friends, thankfully, you guys have been texting and letting me know that, hey, how about now? So I'm gonna say, how about now? I think we're good. Okay. All right, so what we are doing today is we are painting a calla lily. So what are we doing here and what's it kind of look like? So I actually have it already pre-drawn, and I do plan on doing these paintings. Let's see. Yay, I'm there. Yay, thank you, Julie. I got two Julies on my phone, both telling me what's kind of going on. So thank you, Julie, and thank you, Julie. You guys are awesome. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is painting this little calla lily with a little ladybug on it. And if you haven't painted or seen kind of some of the paintings that I've done before, I'll share you with those. So this is kind of along the lines that we're talking about. This is a little daisy that I did with a little bee. And so that's what we're going to be doing, is something along those lines. And this is like a little flower that I did. So these are nice, just fun little paintings that we're going to do. They're great little warm-up exercises, and they're really pretty where you can actually put them out in your house and things like that. So with that, I want you to go ahead and get everything ready. I apologize that you guys have been waiting on me, and I really appreciate you doing that. And so we're going to actually cue the intro, and then I'm going to get the next little video ready. So it's actually live, but I'm using a program, so yay. I don't know. I'm talking because I'm a little bit nervous now that everything got screwed up. Sorry. I'm human. All right, cue in the intro. Okay, welcome. I'm so glad you guys are back. So what we have here is we are going to paint the calla lily with a little ladybug on it. So kind of how did I come up with this stuff? This calla lily, you can see I've got 3 cameras set up. You should be able to see 3 cameras. This one's me talking, hi. And then I've got one that shows my palette or canvas and everything that I'm going to paint. And then I've got my palette set up over here. So, and I'm going to talk through these colors because, you know, the first round of me doing this with nobody actually watching, I already pre-mixed my paints. So anyway, I will talk about that in a second. So the calla lily. What I did was I actually went to Hobby Lobby and went around with some paper that I'm purchasing from them, and I decided to take pictures of flowers because I was just wanting to paint flowers. So anyway, took this picture, you can see there. I do have it on my iPad so that you can, you know, I like to zoom in and things like that. So I have that, and then also I grabbed another reference photo, and this one, so you know, the ladybug's actually going down. Well, I flipped it around and made him go up because I want him crawling up the flower. And I grabbed this picture. There's a website called pixabay.com. That's Pixabay.com. And Pixabay is a site where professional and semi-professional photographers post their images and let anyone really use them without worrying about copyrights and copyright infringements. So it's great for us creatives, so we can go there, grab some amazing imagery and create something of our own from it. So those are the 2 reference photos that I have. Next, I do plan on doing this again next Thursday, same time, 10:30. in the morning, and I will have all this better worked out because now I know to click that button. Who knows? So anyway, I'm going to do this again next Thursday at 10:30, and if you go to the chat stream of this, I actually included a link, and you can go sign up to get email notifications with this already kind of pre-drawn, so that you can, you know, really paint along without having to worry about pre-drawing it. So we're gonna talk about the paints next. So I'm gonna take you over to my palette. Oh, one other thing before I go over to the palette. So I'm doing something a little bit different with this one than I normally do. So you'll notice that it's actually sitting in my lap. And that is something that I normally don't paint like, but because I am being particularly controlled in this painting, I don't want to get into the whites of anything. So I am being particularly controlled, and to do that for me, I have to put it in my lap. Now you do what's comfortable for you. Typically, like all these paintings that are behind me, all those were done on my easel. And but for whatever reason, all 7 of the previous paintings that I've done of flowers have been right here in my lap. So this is where I'm painting. I've got the camera down in my lap. Again, it's not very normal, but you paint however that you like. I know a lot of my students, they'll start to use the easel and realize that they're not comfortable with that, and then prefer the flat at the table. It's totally fine. I'm not going to be upset with anybody for choosing what feels right for them, right? So let's go to my palette, and we're going to talk about the colors. So what I have here on my palette is up at the top, this is my standard layout. Every single time I put them in this exact order and these exact colors. So the reason I do that is because it's like if you're playing the piano, you want to know where your color notes are or your keys are all the time. And that way I'm not thinking about, well, where did I put it? Is it this little pile over here? Is it this little pile over here? Da, 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 da. You know, I know, oh, here I go. And I'm just going reaching to grab it. So the color palette that I always have is black. Now, black, I don't care what color black you use, whether it's lamp black, Mars black, ivory black, don't care. Black, I rarely use black by itself. It's always mixed with one of these other notes. So black, French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, sap green, alizarin crimson, burnt umber, burnt sienna, cadmium orange, yellow ochre, and yellow medium. That's my standard palette. Now we may or may not use all of those colors in this particular painting today, but regardless, I always have them out. This particular palette that you see here is tempered glass that's gray. In the YouTube video notes down below, I actually have a list to the supplies that I use, and this is one of the things that's listed there. What I love about this palette and why I don't feel bad about always putting out my colors here is I take this after every session and I stick it in the freezer. And by putting my oil paints in the freezer, they're going to be ready for me to use again the next day. There's like no thawing period or anything like that. They remain active for a lot longer than if I just left them out in my room. So I take this whole palette, stick it on the bottom part of the fridge. It's just great. So yeah, and this is actually a 16 by 20. I have 2 other smaller canvas palettes that I travel with, but this is the one that always stays home. So this is the one you're going to see me use. Okay, so I set up my standard, and then also on the side over here, I have the colors that I'm going to use for a particular painting. I keep them separate. I am kind of purposeful in how I lay them out. And then you'll also notice that I have them labeled. It's just something that I do. You can do it too if you want to. It just helps me. So I've got my radiant yellow. Radiant yellow is not something that I normally use, like hardly at all. But what I love about the radiant line that Gamelin has, it's a great way to keep the intensity of a color but bring it down into a lower lower color, what should I say, lower saturation. So instead of adding white, I can actually just bring this cadmium yellow down a little bit lower in saturation to the radiant yellow without losing the yellow intensity. It's pretty cool. And then of course I've got my cadmium yellow light, and then cadmium red light, and naphthol red. You're not going to need a lot of these. You notice how small of a little dollop that I put out here? That's because a little of this color goes a long way. I use Gamblin paints, and Gamblin has an excellent pigment in their paints, so a little goes a long way. You might feel like you're wasting paint if you're doing this. If you stick it in the freezer, it'll last you a long time. So and these, like this cadmium yellow light, I've probably had the same tube for at least 10 years. I've been painting about 20 years, so at least 10 years. Excellent. You get what you pay for. Okay, so let's talk about our colors. So I'm going to look at my calla lily, and what I see are a couple of colors here, and I'm not so worried about every single little color that I have in there, but the primary colors that I see, and then I will create that transition with my paintbrush. So I'm going to create this nice deep peachy color that kind of happens through here. You'll find that I use a lot of technical terms like peachy color. Anyway, so to create that peachy color, I actually took some of the yellow ochre, and I'll create this again. So I took some yellow ochre and a little touch of this cadmium red light. And when I say a little touch, I mean, look how little that is. Okay, that's a teeny tiny, maybe half of a pinhead touch. And I'm gonna mix it in. I think there's a hair on there. Yep, there it went. This is why I put my hair back into a ball cap. Okay. So you can see, like, I'm mixing it again, and it's pretty close in color. I could probably add a little bit more of the red cadmium red light. All right, I like that a lot. Okay, now, and actually I'm just gonna go ahead and mix those two together because they're the same color. Okay, now what I did for the dark, so if you notice over here on my lap camera, I've got this beautiful red peachy color. To make that, I'm going to take some of this color that I already made, pull it off to the side, and add a little bit of the alizarin crimson. And a little bit of the alizarin crimson, that goes a long way too. So I'm going to add some of that. So notice how that deepens the color a little bit. Alizarin crimson is a great color to kind of cool things down a little bit, set stuff back. There we go. Okay. So I made my nice peachy color, a little bit of alizarin crimson. And again, when I go into painting, I might pull from some of my other notes here. To make my yellows, I actually took cadmium yellow light and a touch of the alizarin crimson. Just a teeny tiny touch. So I'm making, I do make a lot of my oranges. You know, you're using the primary colors, red, yellow, blue a lot. Okay, so you'll notice pretty similar in color tone. So I did pretty good from the first round where I screwed up and didn't hit the go live button. Okay, so there we go. And then I can pull some of that off the side like I did here and just make it a little bit lighter. Okay, all right. The other color we could make is our green for the stem, but we're going to save that stem for the very last. The reason why we're saving that stem for the last is if you notice here, and it was $1.99, I could have bought it, but I didn't. I bought a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, so if you notice that the darkness of the stem comes here, and then we have the yellow that's up in here, if I think about this intentionally, on how I want to apply my colors, I would start with the green, and then I would have this yellow up here, and then marry the two in the middle. And I'll show you how to do that without having to create all these different variations of color. All right. So next thing we're gonna do, so I like, as far as brushes, so this is an Escoda number 14. It's got a pretty big, I mean, it's about the size of my finger. It's fairly big. Little brush. And what I do is I dipped it into Gamsol. Gamsol is another Gamblin product. It's basically mineral spirits, and it's non-toxic, odorless, so don't drink it, but you know, it's odorless, not like what you know, Bob Ross used to use back in the day when we were all kind of, you know, catching him and doing what we're doing here today. Is he would use turpentine, and the odors from that are really bad. So we've got some great products today where we can actually work in a almost chemical-free environment. It's really good. Okay, so let's work on this. All right, so I've got my palette here, my canvas. There you go. Okay, so I've got it in my lap. I am going to grab first my dark. And I'm going to start along these edges where it's particularly dark. I am being a little bit more careful. This is another thing I like about having it in my lap, is I can easily turn it. I think that's one of the things that easels do, is they make you feel like you're limited on how you can approach a painting. And then I'm going to pull some of that color, let's see, down in here. Okay. And I'm going to add a little bit of the brown, because what I see in my reference photo is there's like this little cup that's happening here. So if I go in here and add a little bit of the brown along that edge, I'm creating that shape that's down in there. I also see, next time I'll actually show you the reference photo at the same time so you can see everything. Actually, here's an idea. There we go. Okay, so you can see down in here, there's like that nice little cup, and I see a little bit of green in here. So I've got some brown right now. I'm going to clean that off a little bit and grab some of my sap green. And I might tone that down just a little bit and grab some of this. So that's one of the things, is like you just want to grab the colors that you see. I am keeping my paint fairly thin, because this first layer, I'm going to build on it. I'm just kind of really laying things out. Okay. All right, I've blocked in the dark colors that I see. Now I'm going to go for the peachy colors right next to it. And I'm also thinking about like how things kind of come down and around. You notice I haven't really gotten into the yellows yet. And right now everything looks pretty well separated, and I'll fix that here in a minute. I haven't really touched the stamen yet. And also I haven't touched the part where I see a lot of yellow. Okay. Now when I switch to a lighter color, I do clean off my brush pretty well because I'm about to go into some of the yellow and get over into here. So what we're doing right now is effectively blocking in our colors. That's what you hear when people say they're blocking it in. We're not so worried about the striation that you would see in the flower. We're not so worried about the transition between light and dark. We're just blocking in the basic color that we see. Okay. Okay, and I know this part under here is going to be a little bit in shadow, so I'm going to want to cool down my yellow just a touch. I'm going to add a little yellow right here. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to grab this and some of that burnt umber that I had before and mix the two together. So one of the things that I do with my colors is I'll put one color note off to the side and then the darkest one off to the other side, and I'll pull them together to get the right color tone that I'm looking for. So if I want it a little darker, I'm going to start pulling in that brown just a little bit. Pull some of that over in here. Okay. All right. And I'll go to my little green right here. One of the things I like about these paintings is I like how white everything is in the background. With my other paintings, I paint everywhere. And so I'm trying to make sure that I keep my hands good and clean, so I'm not, you know, moving the paint around. I don't want to have to paint the background in this particular one. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I've got a little mop brush here. So this is a mop brush. This one's been ruined because I didn't clean it properly. Sometimes I just get lazy and I don't I don't wash my brushes right after I paint. So anyway, this one's ruined. It's kind of a little bit stiff, which come in handy. I never throw away my brushes because there's always a use for them. And my thinking with this particular one is because it's got some bristles here that are kind of stuck together, it's going to make it give that striation that I want in here. So I can see that. It's just a brush stroke. It's so stinking easy. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, so I'm going to pull these in, pull my color notes into each other and pull it down. So I'm paying particular attention to the bristles of my paintbrush here and the direction I'm moving on. So you'll notice that I'm placing it down, pulling it down and around. So that's causing those variations, those color notes to blend into each other and really start to, you know, just kind of blend into each other. Okay, I'm gonna pop out chat. So if anybody has any questions along the way, just feel free to ask a question and I'll look up and answer your question. Look at my picture. So I'm pretty well in the dark and medium tones right now. Okay. And I'm pretty thin. Okay. I'm pretty happy with the direction it's going. I would like to see some darker up in here. There's like a highlight that that's on this fold right here. I want to make sure I get that. And then this fold, there's a nice pretty yellow on that fold, and so on. And like the way my painting is right now, you can't really tell that this is bubbling up right there, and it's got a fold. So we're going to add in those. Let's see one thing real quick. Okay. All right, so let's see. I'm going to add a little bit of green, and I'm going to add some of this brown right here. My paint's still a little too thin. I need to thicken it up. There we go. I just grabbed some of that radiant yellow. Oh, look, that's a pretty neat little greenish brown. It's still a little too dark. It's not bad. And touch right there. And that other fold is going to happen. I just saw a little bit of a green line right through there, so I'm adding that in. Okay, I'm going to continue to deepen up some of these reds just a little bit. It's not as deep as I would like it to be. So I'm going to add some alizarin crimson to our mixture here. And I'm going to add a touch of this ultramarine blue. And that makes it almost a purple color. I'm going to tone that purple color down just a little bit and grab some of my burnt sienna. And again, notice how I'm kind of creating a pile, pulling in the variations until I get a color that I like. I'll go back to my peachy mixture here. I'm going to add a little bit of that radiant yellow off to the side. Try and create that. There we go. That fold. So with oil painting, you do go over, several times. When I say I've painted these ones behind me and they've lasted, months or even years, the neat thing is like you're never really done until you say that you're done. Grab some of my cadmium yellow medium and some of my titanium white. And I see a little bit of green in here, so I might grab some of this little green mixture and just kind of marry those two together and see if I can get a tone that I like that. One of the questions I get a lot is, how long is this going to take? And, you know, with my pet portraits, I can always answer that. I know the answer because I've painted hundreds of them. But with students, and when they ask me that, like, how long is it going to take them to paint? I can't answer that. That's up to you and the level of experience and level of detail and what you're happy with. You know? So if this takes you longer than what we're going to designate for this time today, that's totally fine. And I know right now this looks like a hot mess, right? But I'll show you. It'll come together. But at every painting, there is an ugly stage. Okay, I'm going to blend that together a little bit. So I'm moving it in the direction that I see the flower striation moving, right? Okay, thanks, Rachel. Oh, hey, Rachel. Yay. Okay, I forget where the cameras are. Okay. Feel free to invite friends that might be interested in doing this, not necessarily now, but they can always do it later. Okay. All right, so I've got some really nice medium and dark tones in here. Now, what I would like to see is some light tones. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix. I've got like this nice yellow going on right here. I really want to intensify what's going on here and up here and over here, because that's what I see. I see light, 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 right? And then I do see a little bit of a light like right here and here. So those are what I want to really kind of call out. So I'm going to take some of my titanium white, pull that off the side, and what's funny, I see cadmium yellow light there. So I'm going to take a little bit of that. I might need to grab some more. Let me go grab some more. Red light, yellow light, okay. Okay, so some cadmium yellow light. So you see, like what I was talking about before about paints, I don't know how long I've had this one. So, and how little I actually use. Little goes a long way. Okay, so I'm going to take some of that and mix it in with my white over here. Oh, okay. Thanks, Rachel. Okay. All right. Let's see. Add a little bit more. Oh, wow. Look at that color. Love that color. Look how bright and lemony it is. Peachy and lemony. Those are my technical terms, okay? Peachy and lemony. But look, see how pretty that's going to be? Oh, yeah. Loving it. Right up next to it. I could probably even make it a little bit lighter, but I'm going to go with that one for now, and then I can add a little bit lighter. I'm going to go with a smaller brush this time. So this is in a Skoda number 4. I am a fan of Escodas because they keep their shape pretty well if you take care of them. In one of my online classes, it's Ultimate Guide to Oil Painting Supplies. I have a tutorial in there on how to properly clean your brushes. It's based on a lot of experience, and like I said, I've ruined a lot of brushes, like this one. Yeah, but like I said, don't throw any of them away. But like these Escodas, they're not the cheapest of brushes, but they are awesome. Love them, love them, love them. So enough about that. I am going to start working on some highlights here. So I see some highlight here. Trying to move in the direction that we see the striations happening. And this is where I really want to start getting some brush strokes in there. I want to start seeing some brush strokes. Up to this point, I've kept everything nice and smooth. And that's because the oil paint dries at different rates depending on its level of thickness. So if you've painted before, you've heard probably the terms fat over thin. So what they're referring to there is there's oil in the paint itself. And every tube of paint, Gamblin uses linseed oil, and there's some other oils that you can put inside paint, but that oil is what they're referring to as fat. And that fat over thin means that we want to keep that first layer of paint very thin with less oil in it. And that's why I paint so thinly on this initial layer, and then on the layers on top of that, I'm going to start adding in more thicker paint, therefore more oil. If you do it the opposite way, where you're putting thin paint on top of fat paint, the fat paint underneath it is going to take longer to dry, and that's what causes cracking. So we want to be very kind of cognizant of that. Another thing I want you to notice is how I load my paintbrush here. You notice that I'm not going all the way up. This is I call a crimp into the ferrule. We don't want to load our paintbrushes all the way up into the ferrule and the crimp here, because then the paint's going to get stuck there. And what's going to happen is it will cause your bristles to splay. And I'll show you specifically an example. So like this particular brush, notice how it all splays out. It's not supposed to do that. This is a ruined brush, but like I said, every brush has a good purpose, and this ruined brush makes fabulous dog and cat hair because it's so stiff and it's unintentionally ruined, you know, what happy little accident type of thing. So it was awesome, but here you want to make sure that you don't load it up to the ferrule, especially when you start getting into the more expensive brushes. So how I'm moving my brush, I am loading it up, and I'm starting where the highlights, like the lightest part is, and moving down. What happens there is it's pulling in some of the paint that's from the surrounding area, and then it's causing that nice, you know, gradation and color in from light, medium to dark. Now I'm noticing that my paint is getting a little bit harder to move, and that's where mediums start to come into play. I'm going to smooth that just a little bit. The reason why I'm smoothing it is I am creating a more subtle transition from this red into the bright yellow there. So, okay. If your paint becomes a little bit harder to move, that's where these mediums come into play. So I got this little jar. You can get nicer jars that are more geared towards paint supplies and everything, but this one, you know, I probably got it at Michael's. And it's just a little, it's kind of like a spice jar type thing. I don't really know, or baby jelly jar. So I put the medium that I use for these daily paintings or alla prima paintings. Alla prima means all at once. Is this medium called Galkid. And oh, there you go, Galkid. And oil painting has its own language altogether. So it takes a little bit of time to kind of figure out what to use, when to use it, and why. Why I'm using Galkid is because I know that I'm going to be doing this painting all in one setting. So that's called alla prima style. And Galkid has a high viscosity, which means that it's sticky. So if you think about like honey has high viscosity, whereas water has low viscosity. This stuff right here, the Galkid, if you get it on your fingers, they're going to be sticky, and it's really kind of annoying. So I'm a clean painter. So you'll find that what happens with this is it will help your paints move, but it will also allow that paint to stick to the previous layer of paint, and that helps you with your moving along in your painting. Now, and I just dip, so you guys can see this. Let me put this right here. There you go. So I've got my Galkid. Most of this stuff is dry. So like these, you see all these layers right here, all that's dry. I just add a little bit new right there. Okay. You don't always need medium. It's only when you want to create certain effects, or if you need your paint to move, or if you want it to dry faster. So in that guide, the ultimate buying guide for oil painting supplies, you'll see like a little ad down below or something like that. You can get that, and there's actually a cheat sheet on which ones to use and why to use it. So anyway, I'm just going to dip the tip of my brush into the Galkid, and I'm going to grab some of my paint. The reason I don't mix it in with my paint is because I might use this paint tomorrow. If I were to add Galkid right now to this paint and mix it all in there, it'll be dry probably tomorrow, and then I won't be able to use this mixture again. Linseed oil is what helps it stay open longer, but by me adding in another medium, it's gonna, especially Galkid, it's gonna make it dry faster, which is great for this alla prima, bad if I want to do it again tomorrow. So I'm not adding it directly into my paint. Okay, let me get back my image here. There we go. Okay, I'm liking the way it's starting to look. The other thing I try and do with all my paintings is I really want it to look better than the original picture. So I exaggerate colors just a wee tiny bit. I love color. I think I picture things the way they are on the sunniest of days. Okay, I think I'm going to come back to this and let that paint settle for a little bit. And again, I don't typically sit down and paint with a painting in my lap, but I am keeping this one pretty well controlled. There are some times when I'm working on paintings and I am literally dancing around and moving and painting and being, you know, goofy. That's fine. I like it. I'm just kind of moving some of this color over into here. Okay. Just because I want some detail in here before I move down to the stem and my little ladybug. I'm going to go ahead and work on my stamen here. With the stamen, I'm going to start with the outer part first, which is the darker part. And notice also it has a shadow behind it. We're going to add that shadow. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add that shadow. For the shadow, I'm going to add a little bit of the burnt umber to that purple mixture that we made before. And maybe a touch of green. I see some green in there. And then I'm going to pull some of that out. So what I mean by pulling it out, the shadow is the darkest right next to it, right? And then as the shadow starts moving away from it, it starts lifting off a little bit. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to lift off some of that shadow that's behind it. I want to add a little shadow right here. Yeah. Blend that in a little bit with the stamen so that it's not quite a harsh contrast. Okay, I'm going to grab some of this white and start to pull that off to the side so I can create a little bit of the highlights that you see on the stamen. And that I'm just kind of stippling it on there, and there will be another layer just a little bit lighter than that. And notice I'm not touching all of that color. It's because I don't, what the color that I already laid down, I don't want to mess with that too much. But I do want to add on this additional color because it adds a little bit of variation that you naturally see in nature. And I just grabbed a little bit of straight up titanium white, and I'm shakily putting that in there. So a lot of times I pretend like I have a ton of coffee and just, you know, stipple it on there. Okay. All right, it's looking pretty good. All right. So I'm going to add in more color right through here and then add another little highlight right there. So let's work underneath. Grabbing some of that peachy color, a little bit of the brown. Putting that right under here. So he's got a nice shadow. While I've got that color kind of on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and add in this little tip right here. Make it a little bit wider because I messed up earlier. There we go. And I'm going to pull some of that color right there. There we go. Okay, it's coming along nice. Okay, now I'm going to add this highlight that's right in here. Add some of my yellow and white. Got a nice Let's highlight here. Here. Okay, I'll come back to the highlights here in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my stamen, and then I'm going to add in this little tiny ladybug. So whenever you do a painting, regardless of size of it, whether it's huge like the ones behind me or teeny tiny, you always want to save these little tiny details for last, because you're going to end up, if you don't, you're going to end up doing it like 5 times, and it's kind of a waste of your time. So the most effective use of your time is to focus on the large areas first, like blocking in those colors, and then moving into the details. And you'll notice I wasn't really like super focused on, oh, I gotta get this line, I gotta get this line, I gotta get this line, because nobody is ever going to take your painting and hold it up to the picture that you originally did it from. Well, I shouldn't say never ever, because people will do that with people portraits, and it drives me nuts. So, but anyway, with this flower, they're not going to do that. They're not going to look at this compared to the picture and go, oh my God, you missed this, you missed that. No, what they're going to look at is, number one, they're going to know that's a flower. Number two is they're going to look for, is it, if you're going for realistic, is it realistic? Can I see that this is actually a calla lily, or is there a question about what kind of flower it is? Like this particular flower, I'll show you this one. This particular flower is supposed to be a blue poppy. I have no idea, honestly, if a blue poppy actually exists. I took this picture at a Hobby Lobby, and I know floral people are probably like, yeah, you know, but I like it. It's pretty. And, you know, it's, I don't know. Nobody's ever going to look at the original picture. They're just going to see the colors and know that it's a flower, know that it's likely to be a poppy. And that's what we're really trying to go for here. If you want to make a statement, like a statement piece, like this one behind me with the lion with what's going to be a bunch of clocks and wheels and gears kind of all over and around him, that one is a statement piece. It has a story behind it. This flower does not have a story. It's something pretty, but it might have a story to you. Maybe you had calla lilies in your wedding. Maybe you had calla lilies in your bouquet, and this is one that came from your bouquet. That's a story to you, but it's still, nobody's going to look at that picture and go, well, show me the original bouquet. Okay. So that being said, back to the detail. We want to save these last little details for the last. That's kind of how I got off into a little rant there. But I have had, like, I've done commissions before where we got into literally moving a whisker, cat's whisker, from one location to another. That was a wee bit frustrating. Because if you want a picture, go take a picture. If you want a painting, we can do a painting. Because a painting is a representation of what you see, not what the camera sees. Okay, I'm going to mix a little bit of green mixture here. Because when you mix your paints, ideally, if it's like bigger than, like, I want to be able to grab it, I will create a pile of it. So I'm going to grab some of the sap green and some of this radiant yellow, and I think some of this yellow ochre. I'm going to create a green, nice kind of medium tone green. So that way I can pull that and other colors. You notice right now I'm not concerned about light, medium, dark. I am adding one color note to my stem, and I will define that here in a second. So now that I've got my basic color in there, I can start going in and pulling in some other color notes that I want. So I'm grabbing some ultramarine blue, a little bit of the alizarin crimson, and I'm going to make that connection right here just a little bit darker, and the shadow, so it's like tilting, let's say it's tilting this way, right? So the shadow, the light's hitting here, so it's probably going to have a little bit more shadow right underneath here. And this is where I start deviating a lot from the picture too, because I'm thinking about where's the light coming from. And because I want to accentuate the colors a little bit more and I guess dramatize it a little bit, then I'm going to add more color than what I see in the picture. Another thing is I'm thinking is how to position this in such a way that it's not going up into the corner or into this corner. I want it to kind of lead you off into something else that's off the screen but not in the corner. I'm deepen that up just a little bit. Yeah, maybe a little bit right here. Okay, and then I'm going to the shadows over here. I might add just a little bit more shadow right there, and maybe some right there. Okay. Okay. The ladybug. So the ladybug, it's really just, it's so stinking small that just a little indication of it. And this is where it really helps me to have this in my lap because I can kind of control it pretty well. Or put it on your desk. So I know he's got, let me go to that reference photo. Okay, so you can see it too. All right. So see the little guy? Now I can take this photo and I'm going to edit it and I'm going to rotate it so I see it the way that I have him here. Just like that. Done. Okay. So there he is. You'll notice how he's got a little bit of light right here. And then also, I'm sorry, dark here. Dark and then light, and this is almost like a blue, the bluish purple, you see that? That's on his shell, and that's reflecting from the sky. So we could add a little bit of that, and what that's also going to do, because our background is white, if I make this a subtle light blue, it's going to give him that more three-dimensional look so that he is reflecting that light around him, and it creates that soft edge that's going to be up here and the hard edge is down here. So okay, we've kind of got this nice little red mixture. I am going to mix in some of my naphthol red right up to the side of that, and I'm going to pull that together. I might grab some of this alizarin crimson, and I think I want some of this burnt umber. There we go. That's a nice deep red. Oh, he's tiny. Okay. You see this? He's so tiny. He's got little legs. Okay, so got that. Just try not to sneeze. Allergy season is upon us right now. Okay, so now let's make a little bit of that blue color. And I'm gonna grab some of my cobalt blue. Cobalt blue is a nice warm blue. And again, a little goes a long way. And ooh, little went a long way. All right, there we go. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm actually grabbing a little bit, pulling into that red. There we go. So there's his little back. And I can always go back, and I will. I'm going to add a little pop of color. And now I'm going to work on his body, like his head and everything. Just kind of give a little indication of those. That's a head. I'll go back in a little, add a little more red. Okay. That's a nice cool red. All right, let's work on him again. Add a little dot. A little dot. Little legs. Now this is one of the reasons I like these little small brushes that come to the point, filberts. Leg. I don't have to draw in the whole little leg, just an indication. And it's an insect, so he's got like, what, 2, 3, 6 of them. So there's like 2, and he's got one on this other side over here, on the other side of it, off back there. Okay, I'm going to add some pops of red. I'm going to grab some of that naphthol red and the cad red light, again because I'm exaggerating color. And okay, add some of that blue back in. I'm just kind of stippling that on there. One of the things I'm doing is I'm also looking into my computer because I can see what you're seeing, and that helps me see things from a distance. If you don't have a computer like that, one of the things you can do is you can take your phone and take a picture of it. So like here, I'll take a picture of it. See that? That way I can see it from a distance. And maybe what do I need to do from there to make some adjustments. And what I don't like is how dark he is. So I'm going to lighten that up just a little bit. I don't want pink. Too pinky pink. I'm going to give him an underbelly. Okay. And then a shadow on the leaf underneath him. Okay. And then I'm going to add some last highlights. And these last highlights, I am making them very thick. So don't really want them to blend in with everything. Again, that fat over thin. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do that to the stamen as well. I don't want the yellow, but I'm going to get some of that peachy color that we made and add some of the yellow to it. Just right along. Yeah, just tapping it on. A little bit more white. There we go. Gotta get it a little bit more thick. I might just add a little bit more of a highlight right here. Clean up my brush. One other thing to note is when I clean my brush, I always move it in one direction. I know it looks like I'm scrubbing it in there, but I'm moving it in one direction, flipping it over, and moving in one direction. Because if you think about the hairs on your head, right, you're not going to sit there and go, right? So, and you pay a lot for some of these brushes, and you don't want to like rub them down either because it's made from hair. And even if they're synthetic hair, you still don't want to do that. So just nice, remember, treat it like it's your hair and you're brushing them nice and smooth. So what I'm doing now is I've got a relatively dry brush and I'm taking these edges, kind of softening those a little bit. So there's hard edges and there's soft edges. And that's what is going to help make this look more three-dimensional than cartoony. So by having a soft edge, it's like it's almost bleeding off into nothing. And so by adding this little white and then bleeding it off into the white, there we go. And you're not going to see that in the picture. That's something that you're just going to have to figure out, where do I want a soft edge? Where can I get a soft edge and have it blend off into the background? And if you have a dark background, generally that's pretty easy because then you can just blend that into the shadow. These white backgrounds, it is a little bit more of a challenge because you got to find an opportunity to blend that off into nothing. And see what I'm doing there? And this one, maybe right there. And the other thing I'm thinking is, you know, I've got a soft edge over here, I've got another soft edge over here, and so on. So we want to create like a soft edge here, and then maybe followed by a hard edge. So I'm going to go back in and mess with that. There's another tutorial that I have on my website. You can go to stephanieweaverartist.com and check out classes, and there's online classes that you could take. And one of them, the rooster, I talk a lot about, a lot, but I talk about hard edges and soft edges so you can create those nice feathers that you see in a rooster. So I'm just trying to build up those lights a little bit more and make it look more folded. Yeah. Let's go with the highlight here. Thinking about where that sunlight might be hitting everything. And I'm barely looking at my picture anymore. This is something that I want it to look like, and you'll do that too. You'll experiment with what you like and what you don't like. Okay, and I'm going to add a little bit more dark right here. I'm going to create that hard edge. Cleaning off my brush because I'm moving into another color that's going to be particularly dark. I'm going to go with the burnt umber, alizarin crimson. I'm going to create that, and I might grab some of this color that I made earlier. Get it nice and dark. Alright, so I'm going to create a hard edge right here. Yeah, that added some depth, didn't it? That's awesome. Love that. There we go. And the depth right there. I might add some of that into. So if you notice the painting, I think a lot of artists, they want a formula, or just people in general. We want a formula for everything, and painting isn't that way. Painting is like, what do I want? And so you have to really kind of look at things and figure out what you want, and then, you know, work towards getting that. And that's one of the really, really cool things about art, is that you create something that's yours. That's something that you want to do. It's amazing. I can't find anywhere else in life that you get to do that. I think that's probably one of the reasons that I was drawn to it so much. When I first started painting, I worked for corporations, and nothing that I did was mine. It was for somebody else, for well, yeah, it was just for somebody else all the time. I don't mind doing that. You know, I do a lot of things for other people, but there's some things that you just need to do for the love of doing it. And that became painting for me. I'm going to create another soft edge up over here. I want a more orangey color. So I'm going to grab some of my cadmium orange, which we really haven't messed with yet. And I'm going to add some up in here. I'm going to put my cad orange right there, grab some of this color that I made. A little more cad. Now wherever you touch your painting with one color, you should touch it at least 2 other times, so a total of 3 times with that color. So I just add a little bit there, and I'll pull some of it down in here. Oh, love that. Okay, and then over in here. How's that look? Oh, love it! Yay, so excited. Okay. Yay, okay. Let me darken up a little bit over here. So one of the things, I'm planning on doing this again next Thursday. I'm going to start doing this every Thursday 10:30, so we can paint together. And like I said earlier, if you want to get notified and actually get the drawing ahead of time of what we're going to paint, just in the chat box I have a link to so you can subscribe, and then I'll start emailing you this thing, what we're going to be painting. Also, if you have any suggestions of what you would like to paint, let me know that too. I'd like to know. All right, I'm going to add a shadow underneath him. Again, I had one, but it just wasn't dark enough. I want it darker. Darker. There we go, that's darker. All right. And a little bit dark right there. Okay. I think I'm done. Cool. I like it. Let's see. Is there anything else that I want to modify just a touch? Now that's another cool thing. Even though we're doing this all at once today, if I don't like something and I see it tomorrow, I can still paint on it. It's not like it's permanent, you know? This is one of the things I really like about oil paints. So I can just add layer upon layer, and the more layers that you get, the more interesting it becomes. And I'm going to pull this shadow up just a little bit right here. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm done. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me today. And if you have any questions, just pop them into the chat and I will respond to them as I see them. And until next Thursday, I hope you guys stay safe, happy, and healthy. Stay close to your family, and just stay safe, happy, and healthy. See you guys next time. Bye.